normal people become terrified of criminals.
Shots were just fired. Police just came out and told us, and we're headed there right now.
They become terrified of their own government.
First story from ABC 27. Voting machines in one Pennsylvania county flip votes for judges, an error to be fixed in tabulation. I love this. A quick correction for the beginning of the show. I said it was in one location. Actually, voting machines, plural, in a county were flipping votes. Check this out. They say voters were asked to decide whether Pennsylvania's Superior Court judges Jack Piniella and Victor Stabile should be retained for additional 10-year terms. The yes or no votes for each judge were being switched because of the error, said Lamont Clure, the Northampton County executive. If a voter marked yes to retain Piniella and no, for example, for Stabile, it was reflected as no on Piniella and yes on Stabile, or however you pronounce that. Now, look, they're saying it's going to be fixed. The first question I have is, what if no one noticed? And more importantly, what if no one noticed any others? How are we supposed to? This is a huge problem, because right now, voter confidence is probably at an all-time low, considering 2020 and even 2022 midterms. And now with this, it's not even this. We got a bunch of other stories. Here we go. Let me see if I have we're getting there. Nick Sorter says, one of the top 5 most liberal voting precincts in Kentucky has been cleared out due to a supposed gas leak. Kentuckians are currently at the polls voting to decide whether or not they want to oust their Democrat Governor Andy Beshear and replace him with Trump-backed Daniel Cameron. Highland Baptist Church in Louisville will now be having extended voting hours after being shut down. We have this one. 2 Jefferson County polls get extended voting time after brief shutdowns. So this is a related story. We're basically getting it's not confidence building. Now, I'll say it like this. I don't know if this matters in the big picture. These singular individual voting events. I think, let me clarify. I don't know if right now just this one thing matters. I think together, however, and the bigger picture matters is what I'm trying to say. If you're getting stories like this and people already don't trust the system, it is going to shock confidence in our elections, which means it doesn't matter who wins. If the Democrat wins, the Republicans are going to point to these. And if the Republican wins, the Democrat's going to point to these. Democrats will say things like Republicans were so salty about 2020, they started manipulating with machines. And Republicans are going to say Democrats are here doing the same thing they've been doing. I don't see, when you look at what's going on already, and it's not even the biggest election day. I mean, come on, the primary voting is going to be bonkers. I'm not even talking about, November 2024, the general. What's going to happen when people go to vote in the primaries and they're getting weird things happening? What happens when people go to vote in the primary and a blue state's like, oh, whoopsie, you didn't vote for Trump, you voted for DeSantis or something like that?
What you should do is immediately release the software code of that machine, because they're calling it an error. And was it an error, or was it supposed to do what it did?
Yeah, it's really weird to me how people have this very black and white view of voter fraud. It's like either it's not happening at all, and if you say it's happening, then you're an election denier, blah, blah, blah. Or it's like the whole system is rigged and you might as well not vote. Like, of course voter fraud is happening. Of course there are people tampering machines. Of course there are people stuffing ballots. We know this. People have been charged for this in the past. And as we're seeing, if you look at polls over time of where people are at on the political spectrum, everyone is pushing further to the fringes. And as that happens, people are going to feel it is more of a life or death situation to try to rig elections. Of course they're going to feel that way. Oh yeah, if I change this machine, I'm literally saving trans lives, or I'm literally saving the country from, whatever it might be. So I think we really need to be looking out for this. This doesn't mean don't vote at all. If anything, I think the media are the bigger election riggers than anyone in this. But yeah, there's a very real phenomenon happening more than we probably know.
This is why you need to make sure you go out and vote. There's 2 big things here. One, they want to demoralize you. Mm-hmm. For all you know, like for all the people who think there's a conspiracy to steal votes, maybe the real conspiracy is they want to convince you not to vote. Ooh. I don't believe they can rig as every single machine. Yeah. Now, see this story? This is really demoralizing. You mean even if I do go out and vote, they might flip my vote? Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it, because when I say they, I'm talking about your political opponents, and I don't care who they are. It's establishment, neo-lib, neocon, all of them. All of the people playing dirty politics want to convince you not to vote so that they can win. It's like that episode of South Park where they're voting for the giant douche and the turd sandwich. And then I can't remember what happened. I think like Kyle goes to Stan and he's like, you got to vote. And he's like, okay, I'll vote, I guess. He's like, awesome. Wait, who are you voting for? He's like, I'm voting for the other guy. No, wait, don't vote. They want to convince you to vote, but if they find out you're going to vote for their opponent, they don't want you to vote.
I think if these machines are flipping votes intentionally, the more people that vote, the more likely it's going to get found out that they're flipping votes.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you should definitely vote and pay
Absolutely.
close attention.
And be volunteering. Like, be involved in your local elections. Be involved in your local community. Half the people that are volunteering are going to be these activist types that are on welfare, that don't have jobs, that have all the time in the world. You go be involved in that. We should be at our local elections. We should be, the volunteers there, because that's going to be how you're going to spot this stuff.
Next year is going to be wild. I don't even know where to begin with it.
The fact that like there's a lack of trust in the establishment essentially is, I think that the lack of belief in the soundness of the elections, that's baked into the distrust of the establishment. And the more we see people that are skeptical or that are cynical about voting or about the system, the more you're going to have things like people essentially confirmation bias. They'll see something that seems anomalous or seems weird, and then they'll be like, well, I know it's definitely this, because all it takes is one small thing for people to be like, now I've seen enough to have my previous opinions confirmed, and so now it's not now the whole thing should be thrown away. And that's just a symptom of having a system that people are very cynical about. People are extremely mistrusting of the establishment media, the establishment when it comes to the government. And it's not just in the United States. I mean, you guys were talking about what Canada's like now. And this is a phenomenon. Yeah, and this is a phenomenon that's happening across basically the whole of Western society.
I do think what Lauren just said is consent to an American invasion of Canada.
Absolutely. Well, it would be of China.
All right, well, you got to wait till till springtime. All right, it's cold up there.
I just want to let you know, you do know the founding fathers of the United States went to you guys and said, y'all were colonies too. And our guys were like, you guys want to get in on this? And you were like, nah, we're good.
They were like, we don't want the smoke, man.
We were burning down the White House, all right? We still had a bit going on for us.
The British did. We almost took Montreal.
Our ancestors.
I'm just saying.
Did you guys see the Canada election fraud stuff with the Chinese interference?
No, what happened?
No, Chinese
None of you guys saw. We have had hardcore.
Lauren, how many people live in Canada? Like 30-something million?
How can you guys not care about this? You're going to have a colony of China living above you, literally.
We're going to? Remember when the Chinese army went to Canada and was like doing training drills?
Yep. Yeah, literally. And you guys don't care about this? When I was at the airport.
You're 3 hours, your border's 3 hours from my house in New Hampshire. I damn well care. You know
Yeah,
this.
you should. Not only were the ads, the wait times for my flights were all in Chinese. Vancouver is becoming a Chinese majority city right now, and people are raising the Chinese Communist flag at City Hall and police stations and stuff. It's kind of wild. But yeah, we've had a proven by CSIS, our intelligence agency, Chinese influence campaign in Canada to win the election for Liberals. Donations, they've put out ads for students and Chinese only ads encouraging people that are Chinese in Canada to vote for Liberal politicians. And honeypots have been deployed. CSIS confirmed that against
Maple pots.
Maple pot. Syrup pots in Canada.
Thank you, sir.
But full blown. And this is just not being talked about how our elections are literally being.
Well, it happened in 2015 as well, except it was the U.S. doing it. In the 2015 election with
What?
Lee
Okay, I like that,
and
though.
things, yeah.
Wait, what was it for liberals, though?
It was like deep state U.S. It was liberals. And they helped put,
James O'Keefe had a
Trudeau
report about
blackface in power.
James O'Keefe had a report about Chinese money flowing through Act Blue, I think.
You were
something big about that.
Lauren, you were talking about immigration. Is immigration largely from China in Canada? Is that the
That's
phenomenon?
what's interesting. We used to have a large amount of this, particularly BC, Vancouver, from Hong Kong, but it's flipped. It's in the single percentages for Hong Kong, and it's mostly mainland China now coming to BC, Vancouver. They call it Hongcouver. You're not supposed to say that out loud, but
I was gonna wait for that one.
it's
you can't say anything up there.
when you literally have enclaves. I was getting my nails done at the airport. True story. And the lady lives in Richmond, which is where the YVR airport is. And she's like, oh, yeah, I can't shop at certain stores. And she's not particularly political. She's just like, yeah,
Richmond,
BC.
Oh, okay.
Like Vancouver area. And she's like, yeah, they just don't want me shopping there because I'm white and I don't speak the language, the local language. You look at complexes being built in Richmond, and all of the advertisements for buying are in Chinese. They're not in English. I could show you videos right now. All of the housing. We are a Chinese colony at this point.
So is,
like,
what is the voter fraud angle?
oh, well, China is directly influencing our elections in Canada. They are deploying ad campaigns. They're deploying honeypots. They're involved in offering tons of money to liberal politicians because they want to continue to have large amounts of control over
Also the
our
students,
economy.
right?
And also money laundering. They call it snow washing in Canada. So tons of, I think it was, we have the same amount of money laundering as the UK, but we have about a 3% success rate at actually pursuing them legally compared to the UK.
I'm seeing it from Al Jazeera. This is from September, a couple months ago. Canada, what does this say? Canada opens inquiry into allegations of election meddling by China and Russia. I also saw from Bloomberg in 2021, China's alleged election meddling creates problem for
Look
Trudeau.
at this, yeah. AP reporting from September 2023. China announces public inquiry into whether China, Russia, and others interfered in elections.
Yeah, there's a whole investigation into it. It's all confirmed. It was, I think a lot of it was broken by Global. No, it wasn't
Well, look,
Global. It was McLean's. I can't remember.
Americans, see, here's what happens. In the revolutionary era, the era of independence in the United States, it wasn't just 13 colonies. Everyone says the original 13 colonies, but they don't realize that British colonies actually extend up into Canada. There's many of them. And the founding fathers, the same negotiations they're having with, say, Florida or South Carolina or whatever, are the same negotiations they're having with Quebec, another British colony. Well, up north, the Canadian, what is now Canada, was like, we're not interested in declaring independence. You're on your own. So it's actually a bunch of British colonies, and only some of them declared independence.
Yeah.
So I think what you see here is the United States has more descendants of rebels. There were more people here who were rebellious and willing to fight and die for independence than in Canada.
Absolutely.
Canada ends up with more people who are willing to play ball. They're more willing to say, look, I don't want to get into a fight. And this opens the door to heavy soft power from, say, China or Russia.
What are gun rights
exactly.
like in China? What are gun rights like
in
in
China,
Canada?
none.
I want to make one more comment. You know what the most depressing part of all of this is? I don't even get my scam calls in English anymore.
Oh,
I'm like, I'm completely
That's true in
serious.
the United States, too.
Is it?
My good friend Scam Likely calls very often, and it always leaves you a message.
you know
and
that
it's-
guy too?
Yeah.
Scam. What's he up to?
Scam Likely, that's his name.
You guys know telemarketer?
They're always in
Telemarketer?
Chinese. I'm like, they actually expect when they call a Vancouver like phone number, they're like,
heard
oh, we're more
Vancouver a
likely to
lot.
reach a Chinese person.
Have you
You know
picked
that-
up
you know
any
that-
Mandarin?
I need to, clearly.
I
You know
imagine.
what I think that is? I think that this is a big problem in the United States and in North America in general, where we're all getting these random phone calls, and it's been ongoing for a long time. When you answer it, you get an automated machine saying something in Mandarin you can't understand. But understand this. For you as an individual, having a minute or two of distraction, it's no big deal to your life. But for the entire country, China can calculate at the macro level. When we run these bots to call 7 million people per day, we depress the U.S. economy by 0.02% or something like this. True. It is the macro effect. As an individual, you don't care, but on the whole, it could be massive. I describe it like blackjack. You know, at the table for the time, it's basically a coin toss between you and the house, but that 0.5% edge over the year means the casino will make money. Same thing for China doing these scam calls.
Well, you know what it does too? It makes people never pick up phone calls.
Exactly.
Like you get a call from a business that's actually like involved in your life and your community, wanting you to come out. You're not answering that. No one answers their phone. We were just talking about this morning. We don't answer our phones anymore. If
I don't. I don't even have
kind
my
of always
ringer on.
been
I
that
keep my
way,
ringer
though.
off.
Did you guys hear about what happened with the banks?
No.
Past a week? All these different banks had payroll disruption. And people think it's like, oh, so I didn't get my paycheck for a few hours. It was kind of annoying. Hold on. Let's say 1 million people are expecting their paycheck right when they wake up. Instead, they get it at 4 p.m. How many of these people living to paycheck had a bill that was
it's a
due
big
that
problem.
day?
The same thing happened in Canada a few months ago.
Yeah.
With TD, they missed payroll, and I mean, and there's people who are moving into new homes, and they have
People's
to
rent
close
that
on
was missed. I think
mortgages and
Trudeau
things.
even had to do a statement about it.
Right,
or something.
right.
Yeah.
And then what? They charge people overdraft fees that weren't able to get them. That's insidious.
Yeah.
If a bank can't give you your payroll, they cannot charge you an
Good
overdraft.
luck. They don't
Yeah.
care.
Man,
It's
that's
the scary
like
stuff.
use your
And now we've got-
Second Amendment right, your First Amendment right.
Yo,
That,
easy
was it
guys.
the
Stop there,
the
Ian.
sixth
I mean-
bank? The sixth bank this year just collapsed in the United States. was it like Iowa Savings and Loan or something like that? Just collapsed.
I got to ask. So the American colonies split off from the Canadian colonies long 250 years ago. What are gun rights like in Canada from then to now? What have they? What was the establishment and existence of weapons rights?
There's, it's been pretty good, but there's
Well, it wasn't rights,
this
though.
short period when a certain politician got elected that they all seemed to disappear overnight. I can't Trudeau, right? Yeah, no. Immediately as he came in, like 2020, they got rid of AKs, M4s, M16s, 1,500 weapons, like all overnight, gone. Added to restricted, can't buy anymore. And then after the Uvalde shooting, because of course Uvalde is in Canada and this really affects us, and the gun used was definitely a gun that's legal in Canada, not one that doesn't even... Anyway, it made no sense. He banned handguns while we were filming the documentary Infringed, so you can't purchase, transfer them anymore. And this is going to keep happening over and over. They're floating bills to ban things like the Plinkster, which is literally like, to shoot tin cans, and they're talking about banning these guns. If Trudeau and the Liberals stay in for another, they win the next election.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.